Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TARDIS Zone Talks. Yes. Okay, where do we start? So, I was minding my own business the other night, and I get a message of MCTV, who's in the chat, and he goes, "You want to check this stream out?" So I was like, "Do you know what? I'm not really interested because I don't like." Are you live? Yeah, I'm live. This is live. Don't worry. There's a couple of live streams today, actually, because of to make up for because I took the last night off. I was supposed to do this last night, but Cheryl was a bit under the weather last night. Yeah, well, yesterday. Just one of those days, you have your down days, and she says I need to get out of the apartment, so we went for something to eat. We went for some sushi and we had a couple of beers, believe it or not. And then I came home, I had a couple of cans in the fridge. And then I started drinking even more. And I sat down and I watched last night. Cheryl was actually laughing because I ended up watching I ended up watching, what was it? I think it was Iron Man 2. Then what was after that? I think it was Thor. Was it Thor? Or yeah, I think it was Thor. And I'm doing them in the order they were released. So I just finished last night. We just finished Iron Man 3. So over the last couple of nights, I've been watching all the Marvel movies, and I have to say we've been spoiled in the early days anyway. Even the ones that weren't the greatest movies were still much better than what they're producing now. But back to topic. Anyway, I did then decide to go in and have a look at this stream. And when I went in, I was listening, and then I very quickly could tell that this stream was going to be absolutely diabolical. And it's diabolical for a couple of reasons. Before we get into Lance, anyway, I'm going to talk about the host of the channel. Now, the host of the channel has made it clear that all they're interested in is views, because repeatedly kept talking about how this was the biggest audience they had, right? And also admitted, because they had another controversial figure on and that stream did well, they thought it'd be a good idea to bring Lance videos on to talk, because they knew that the stream would get a reaction. And it did. It did. And he did succeed. And we're all kind of idiots for falling for it, right? All of us, everybody that turned up, we are kind of idiots that we fell for it. But at the end of the day, as we sat down and as we listened, it became apparent that this was going to be, as I said, a diabolical stream. Now, back to the host. The host was bringing guests on. Right near the end of the stream, the host decided that they're going to start messing with guests and stuff like that. It actually became all childish. But the host, when he had guests on, in particular when he had Therese on, he started questioning Therese whether he was working, and then start asking him personal questions about his health, right? As a host of a show, right? You're not there to demand answers. If you ask a question and your guest tells you that they don't want to answer the question, you move on. It's as simple as that. You're in no position to be asking. Just because it's your channel and you're the host doesn't give you the right to think that you can ask personal questions. If they choose not to answer that question, you move on. It's as simple as that. And the way you treated Tharis on the stream was absolutely disgraceful, and you kept cutting people off as well. But people are asking who Lance is. Well, Lance is the fella that RTD called a Republican CUNT. And, you know, all I'm just going to say is after watching that stream on that channel with him on it, I absolutely agree. And I'm not the only one, right? There are people from both sides of the fandom in that stream commenting on this stream how disgusting this stream was, right? Now, as I said, the host, he's a wind-up merchant. He's also what you call a facilitating people like this, and you'd have to actually question what his motives are. But I think we've already know what his motives are. It's to get the biggest views and the biggest audience that he can to watch him. He's made that clear, right? Now on to Lance videos, right? To me, right, I'm just going to say, I don't go around calling people homophobic. You know that, right? It's not a term that I use because, you know, I think it's used too frequently by the other side to just dismiss an argument. But in this case, it's absolutely spot on. Now, Lance to me is like a terrorist, right? A radical terrorist that uses certain parts of their holy book and then to justify their bigotry, their hatred, and blowing people up. This is what Lance does, right? When he hides behind the Bible, right? He's hiding behind the Bible to hide behind his own bigotry, his own homophobia. He is the perfect example of a bigot and a homophobe. He is. It's as simple as that. If you saw this stream, absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Right? And that's exactly what he's doing. He's hiding behind the Bible. Right? Now, I'm Catholic. Right? He's Christian, but I'm Catholic. Right? And, you know, when it comes to religion, you know, up until I was about 13 or 14, I was a very religious person. Right? But I was brought up in a world and brought up by parents that you don't judge people, no matter what. Now, the Catholic Church is actually moving with the times. This might be shocking to Lance, but Lance has actually said that LGBTQ plus community are all God's children. And, you know, we shouldn't judge. The Catholic Church is moving with the times, so you might be a bit shocked about that. But it was blatant homophobia from this guy. And I don't come out and I say this lightly. But this fella, right? He got what he wanted, right? He is like the host, right? This fella Lance goes and does videos, right? And actually, you know, will do live stream. This is why he's being banned off TikTok. Going to pride marches and everything, and you know, taking the piss out of them. Right? Now, I don't care where you stand with pride and all that, or marches and all of that. But the fact that a young lad of his age is going there just to mock people that might love the same sex or whatever is absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. Right? Society, even in this country, is a Catholic country. Right? The same-sex marriage here. There's no discrimination. Right? Recently in this country, Catholic country, we allowed abortion. Country is changing. Times are changing. You know? But you never act away. Lance is hiding. Lance is hiding behind his religion to disguise his bigotry. Now, this is also a guy that says that he wouldn't have friends from the LGBTQ plus community. Right? And yeah, he's going around and saying that, like, he has no problem with gay people. Yeah, I agree, not all Republicans, and I said that, right? And Jack, you do make a good point there. I just want to point out that, look, I'm not saying I don't agree with RTD when he used the word Republican, because that's wrong, right? At the end of the day, not all Republicans, right? Just like not all Tories and not all Labour, because Labour was in England, had its own scandal with anti-Semitism, right? But not all Labour supporters, not all Tories, not all Republicans, and not all Democrats are racists, right? So he shouldn't have used the word Republican. But he was right to call him the other word, and I'll back him 100%. He was absolutely spot on to call this fella out. This fella wanted a reaction, and RTD gave it to him. And then he blocked him. And he was right to do so. Right? He was right to do so. Anyway, I do have someone that was there that night that I'm going to bring on, because I'm not dwelling on this for too long, by the way, because I've got other streams to do as well. But I did want to highlight this. And also, Mr. TARDIS is going to be actually doing a video. He said he was going to be doing a video on that live stream. And you know me, I don't always agree with Mr. TARDIS or Tharis for that matter. And even Memory was on, and Memory called him out, which you have to give credit for. I have to be honest. Tharis called him out. And then, as I said, they start getting personal with Tharis. They wanted to know what he did for a living. And then, they start, talking about his disability. And then they wanted to know more about that. And he wasn't comfortable answering those questions. And, the host was acting like, he was some sort of dictator. If a guest doesn't want to answer a personal question, you move on. You don't demand answers. So I've sent that email to the person that was talking to on Twitter DMs. You know who you are. I sent you the email if you want to get yourself in the studio. As I said, I'm not going to dwell on this for too long. But look, Jack. Look, at the end of the day, right? As I said, I don't always agree with Mr. TARDIS, but I'm 100% behind him on this one. And listen, if he does what you say he does, well, then that would be a shame, right? If he actually does it objectively and calls this out and doesn't use it as an excuse to attack other people, then absolutely spot on. I'm on for it. But you credit where credit is due. I'm sorry, I don't always agree with this fella. The way it's gone for me and him the last 5 years, and even Tharis. Like, I don't always agree with them, but I was behind them this time. And you know what? Fair play to them for going on. And people were asking me in the chat to go on, but here was the thing. I could have went on, right? But as I said to everybody in the chat, and as I was saying to Mr. TARDIS while he was on, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Because even when he went on, when Mr. TARDIS tried to talk until Lance actually ran off, every time Mr. TARDIS tried to answer a question, within 3 or 4 words of him getting his sentence out, Lance would cut across him. So he wouldn't answer. This is what people like Lance do. They don't give a person a chance to answer questions. So then when Mr. TARDIS finally went on a roll, Lance went very quiet. Right? And then it was the host and then Mr. TARDIS that were talking. Right? But Lance went all quiet. Right? Yeah, but guys, come on. You just have to get look at I'm not his number one fan, but you have to give credit where credit is due. I'm sorry. People need to look, if he uses it as an opportunity to attack everybody, if he uses it as an opportunity, it will be sad. But you know what I mean? It's credit where credit is due. Anyway, let's bring on the guy that sent me the video in the first place and watched it from the very start. I obviously had to go back and watch clips until I caught up the main stuff. Thanks for putting my mind at ease, Noel. I wasn't aware of this, Lance, but I had seen the homophobic Instagram post and I was insane. Yeah, look, all I'm just gonna say is that you know, I wouldn't even brought this guy on. As soon as I knew that there was justification for what RTD said, there's no way you'd bring a guy on like that. You only bring a guy on like that if you want to stir shit up in the fandom and you want to get a reaction. And the host has made it clear that that's exactly why he brought him on, right? For views and clicks. Okay, so you know they're very open about it, so which you have to kind of give credit fecking for, you know. But at the end of the day, if you're going to keep bringing people on like that, it's disgusting. You shouldn't be giving these people a platform. These people should be deplatformed. It's as simple as that. You don't give them any airtime. Why would you do that? You're just letting them speak and get the bigotry out there. And that's exactly what happened. Listening to Lance was the most disgusting thing I have ever heard in my life. My blood was boiling. I'm glad I kind of didn't go on because I would have absolutely lost it. And I probably would have made a show of myself, to be quite honest, because I was that angry. I was that angry. Absolutely disgusting. It's a good way to kill your own platform. I agree. But someone's saying freedom of speech. But listen for a minute, right? Don't hide this thing. He hid behind that as well, right? I'm sorry. Don't fucking hide behind free speech, right? There is no room for bigotry in this society, right? And I don't want to hear, oh well, it's freedom of speech. Not freedom of speech. Hate speech and all of that is not freedom of speech, right? That kind of shit needs to be knocked down straight away. It's not freedom of speech, right? That's the same excuse that all these idiots out there use. Oh, it's freedom of speech. It's not freedom of fucking speech. It's hate speech. It's homophobia. It's whatever it is, but it's not freedom of speech. And here's one for you, right? Right, and I don't care. This is shocking, right? But this is the best analogy. Say that to the Jewish people, right? That was freedom of speech. Hitler gone around. What he was doing was freedom of speech. Go on, tell them, right? Same things happening here. Bigotry, homophobia, right? It's not freedom of speech. It's fucking hate speech, and they should be fucking locked up for it. Simple as that. That's where I stand. Don't hide behind that freedom of speech bollocks. Homophobia is homophobia. It's not freedom of fucking speech. Anyway, here's me guest for today. And just before he does start talking, I'm just going to call out a few of the members that are in the chat. Now, listen, just to let you know, guys, right? We obviously have our new who watch along on this channel, and then we were supposed to do a members one. But what I'm going to do is for next week member stream on Tuesday, I'm going to do the Unquiet Dead and the next episode. So we're going to do a double bill, just to free up a little bit of time, so I can do the Peter Capaldi watch along with everybody tonight. So anyway, let's bring on. Oh, hold on! I said I was calling out me guests. Yeah. So we have Cinnamon Toast Crunch, who's a member. We got Chris Persia, who's a member as well, in the chat. Who else have we got? I think that's all the members. No, we got James Dawson. who's a member in the chat as well. Remember, there are 2 levels now, guys. There's the $1.99 level that'll give you access to the live streams, and then we have the $4.99, which gives you the extra perks. So if you haven't signed up or joined to be a member, there are plenty of live streams there and interviews there at the moment. And as I said, we will be doing that double bill of RTD next week as well. And we have a couple of more interviews to do as well. I just have to organize with Ian. It's just things have been all over the place this week, but we're getting something always, when we get back to normal, something always happens. So, but hopefully now that's the end of it for a while. And we'll be able to just get back on track again. But yeah, look out for that anyway. But let's bring on our guest. It's the one and only MC TV from the Zero Room podcast. It's a new podcast he's been doing on his YouTube channel. But Marty, we're obviously here to discuss the events of the other night. And, as I said on the tweet, it's actually nice to see the fandom come together to actually call out proper bigotry and homophobia.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just going from that comment section the other night, I think I can't even put into words. Even now thinking about it, because I've sort of been thinking about it for the past while, and I just think it's to be pretty frank with you, it's a fucking disgrace. The fact that this lad Lance was given a platform to just come out with this kind of stuff, and yes, people came on and challenged him, as they rightly did, to do it, but the fact that I think as Lance is to blame for what he was saying, yes, but I think, as you say, a lot of the responsibility falls down onto the host as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether he listens to you or what, but Paul, I think you need to get a fucking grip of yourself, because the fact that you gave a platform for this guy to come on and just spew out this mess, and you clearly said yourself you don't care as long as you get your views. You don't give a fuck what happens. You're just there for the clicks and just to sit back and laugh, which is what you did the other night. You sat back. You never pulled them up. When somebody said something that you disagreed with, you cut them off. But when Lance was spewing out this homophobic bile, you just let him continue.
Yeah.
So, and when Tharis come on, or when Maybury come on, or when Mr. TARDIS come on, they say something you don't agree with, say, I know you're a big fan of, the Tory government, and you were pushing for Penny Morton to be Prime Minister and all that. But when they say something that's critical of the government, or positive about the BBC, you shut them off. But
that was interesting. That was when Mr. TARDIS was trying to justify the license fee. And here's the thing, whether I agree with him or not on that license fee issue, the fact is that he gave a credible response to what the question that was posed to him. But you were right. As soon as he did say stuff that they didn't like hearing, he was either cut off, or one of them would cut across when Lance was actually decided to talk. But as soon as Mr. TARDIS went full flow, do you notice he went quiet and just kind of disappeared into the background? I mean, look, this guy was hiding behind, and do you know what? It's, as a Catholic, right? And I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, right? But as I said, up until a certain point in my life, I was very religious, right? And I took that very seriously. I took my religion seriously, but I never judged fucking people based off their sex or anything like that. Never did. Or the sexual preference, and nothing, right? Because I was raised to fucking be kind. And even in the Bible, it says, be nice to one another. You know what I mean? So that was the message that I had. But when I was listening to this, it boiled me blood, for the simple reason is, right, I'm sick of all of these fanatics, and it doesn't matter what religion they're in, right? There's a radicalized side to every religion. We know that, right? But these fucking idiots are the ones that hide behind their religious books to justify the fucking homophobia, the terrorism, and all of this other bleeding stuff that goes on. It's absolutely disgraceful. It is. And as I said, you know, people like Lance want to wake up, smell the coffee. The Catholic Church is moving, and all religions are kind of moving with modern society because they have to. And remember one thing as well, actually, you pointed out, and I just want to say something about the Bible. The Bible was written by men. And whether you agree with it or not, men are fallible. Men can actually, you know, make mistakes, you know, and men can be wrong. You know, the Bible was written how many thousands of years ago, right? Right, we're in a modern society now. Unfortunately, you know, that book, whether you like it or not, some of the stories and some of the passages are still relevant today. But a lot of them aren't. And remember, the Bible consists of stories that were all agreed on at the Council of Nicaea. So don't be talking to someone about religion because I could walk rings around you. But anyway, the fact is, don't be hiding behind your feckin' Bible to attack. And by the way, the thing that was disgusting was every time a new guest came on, he was repeating the same thing, that being gay was a sin.
He said, you know, being gay was a sin. You know, basically, he memory. You know, shout out to him. I know you and him had your run-ins with him and whatnot, but he said it. He fucking hit the nail on the head when he said, he asked Lance straight up. He says, you know, if a person you know, was gay, you would tolerate it, but you would like them better if they weren't.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and basically, you know, he put it to him.
Yeah,
he was
he did.
and Lance tried to dodge the question any way he could.
And then he was getting cut off all the time, memory, because he was actually making sense.
Yeah.
He was actually making sense. And this is the thing, as you said, I don't get on with memory, but fair play to him for fucking calling it out, because he did. Out of the three of them, he did hit the nail on the head. Obviously, when Mr. TARDIS came on, they tried to divert that conversation. Obviously, they did. Not Mr. TARDIS, but the other two, because they wanted to keep away. They tried to keep away from it. And Mr. TARDIS tried to bring it back on track, because he kept saying, "No, let's go back to why we're actually here," and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, but look, as I said, whether you agree with RTD calling him a Republican CUNT, you take the Republican part out of it, CUNT was justified. I'm sorry, but this is disgusting. And this is a young lad, and it's sad because this is the society that we're actually really living in. Unfortunately, it's not safe for LGBTQ plus community right now. And it's because of people like Lance, right? And these radical activists, right? They're making it a very dangerous space for people. Homophobia is on the rise. Attacks against the LGBTQ plus communities on the rise. And you wonder why. And you wonder why. People like, I'm sorry, but people like Lance, right, have to be called out, right? But the fact, and I agree with Marty, the fact that someone on YouTube would actually give this guy a platform after he's been banned off TikTok twice, he's been banned off Instagram, right? God knows if he's being banned off Facebook. I'm pretty bleeding sure. I guarantee you every social media app that's out there, he's been probably banned from at least once because of his views.
It's there's no excuse for it. I mean, you know, like some of the topics that were covered, and as much as I go on about Lance, like some of the topics that were covered even went back to as much as Lance went on his homophobic rant, there was other topics that were covered, you know, as you say, well, about the BBC license fee, which is not a serious topic as
no. But they did try to divert the conversation when the other two came on. That was the point. That's why they kind of changed it up. But but go on, Marty. I'm just fucking looking. As I said, if I had a went on, right, because people in the chat were saying, "Go on, Noel, go on," and I was like, "You're just wasting your time. You are, though. Even though the three lads went on, and I give them credit for what they were doing because it needed to be called out, but at the same time, I was kind of thinking, well, you know, you're wasting your time. You can hear them. They're not taking it seriously. The host wasn't taking it seriously. You know, he was near the end of the stream, then he started acting the crap, bringing on the guests. He wasn't there. Apparently, he said he was going for a shit. Then he started playing Turtles music, and then he was bringing them on, letting them talk, and then knocking them off. And then I just finally left. I didn't even stay for the end of the live stream. Then I just got bored and I left. And I actually told everybody to leave as well because we were playing into his hands.
It was just pure bile. I mean, absolute bile. I mean, I understand, right? If lads grew up in, I don't know where he lives or America, but if you grew up, you know, yes, you could say a lot of it could be influenced by your family. If you grew up around that, what's the word? Sort of like a community, a real like religious community that's very much, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christian communities in America. Yeah.
But the fact is that, you know, as you say, times are changing. It's 2022. You know, it's not the 1950s. It's not the 1940s. Things are moving on. And, you know, the fact that someone like him has this type of mindset, yes, you could say that's drilled in them by his parents. But, you know, the lad's 20 years of age. You know, you need to understand that, you know, the world has changed a hell of a lot since the bloody Bible was written.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you hear about, you know, I don't mean to insult anybody with their religion or what they believe in, but I was like you, I was brought up a Catholic, but as years have went on, I'm not an atheist, but I've been more agnostic. And, you know, I just, you know, when you hear about the scandals that come out of the church, we know in Ireland, you know yourself what stuff has come out in Ireland. That's what put me off the church. But, you know, hiding behind this, you know, just using the Bible as like a
shield a shield to fucking protect you.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. It's like he's using the Bible as a means to, as he's using the Bible to hide behind, to spew this bigotry and this hate, and it is hatred. Right, the fact that and even then, I think he tried. If I'm correct in saying, when they would start questioning Therese about his health and stuff like that, and I don't know, I have to be careful here. But didn't they try to kind of then go in on that then?
Well, they did, and luckily Therese didn't take them on, and fair play to him for that. He stood his ground, he said exactly what he had to say, and got the conversation back on track. But you just knew that was the way it was going, and, you know, no one deserves, you know, if you have health conditions, you know, people can't help that, and you know, you do not deserve to be mocked for whatever conditions or disabilities you live with.
I'll give you an example, and Marty is going to play along here, right? But I'm going to do an impression of the host of this channel, right? And I'm going to start asking Marty some personal questions. I'm going to show you how this person acted. So, right? So I'm going to ask you a question. So Marty, what do you do for a living?
Oh, well, yeah, no, I'm unemployed. I'm a student.
Right. So you don't work?
No, I study.
Right. And why don't you work?
Because I'm too busy with my education to be working. I haven't got time to fill it in.
Right. So you don't earn a living at all. So you're a freeloader.
More or less. That's the kind of stuff he was doing. He was basically trying to imply that anybody who doesn't work is someone who's, you know, scamming the government out of benefits and, you know, should get off their arse and work.
And this was another thing as well, right? When the person, so Marty, this time when I ask you this, I want you to refuse to answer the question, and I'll give you his reaction when he was refused. So, Marty, I'm going to ask you a question this time. You're going to refuse to answer it.
Yeah.
So, have you got any health conditions?
That's nothing to do with you.
But I'm the host. I'm the one that's asking the question, so you'll answer what I ask you to answer.
No, that's nothing to do with you. It's none of your business.
But what? Just answer the question.
Well, no, why should I? It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Well, I'm just telling you. I'm the host, right? I brought you on, so you have to answer the questions that I ask you.
No, it's not. It's not. It's it's none of your business.
And that's exactly what he did to poor Therese, right? Tried to
Yeah.
get him to answer questions that he didn't want to answer,
Yeah.
right? And as a host, right, if you do ask a personal question, and I have often asked personal questions on this, and I say answer only if you want to answer. You're not to dictate what a guest should answer and shouldn't answer. If a guest doesn't feel comfortable with that, then that's it. Someone says bring Lee on. But Lee, did you see the stream in question? Because because it won't be fair to bring people on that haven't seen the stream in question.
And another thing as well, when you're just talking about Paul, the host, Mr. TARDIS challenged him on stuff that he said about the NHS. He's a Paul would be as a he describes himself as right wing. He believes the BBC should be done away with, that the NHS should be national or privatized. And what Mr. TARDIS put to Paul basically was, what does someone do who can't afford private healthcare? What does someone do? And he basically said, "Oh, well, they can do without." So Mr. TARDIS reply to him was, "So what? They can die?" And Paul said, "Yeah, pretty much." So more or less saying, if you can't afford private health here, you should just go and die. That's the guy that was hosting this stream last night.
And then he actually goes down a few minutes later and says, I was just winding you up and stuff.
Oh yeah, backtracking.
Right? Backtracking, right? Yeah. And this is what they do, but he's not really, right? He was bragging about how he had several cars and how he worked hard to get where he was and all of this. Well, I need to tell you something, Paul, right? You mightn't realize this, right? But yes, you've worked hard to get where you've gotten. But I think you forgot one major thing. There are a lot of people out there that are sick that wouldn't be able to go out and work. And the fact that, according to what you believe, whether you're taking the piss or not, the fact that you did say, so basically the vulnerable can go and fuck themselves. All people can go and fuck themselves and they can all perish. That's basically what you're saying. And that's absolutely disgusting.
That's to say, most of my anger last night, as much as the stream was set up to be a platform for Lance, and Lance did say what he said, which I do not agree at all with. Nothing he says I agree with. But I think Paul played a large part into that. He should never give him a platform. And another thing too, as you say, he was sitting back. I could see him sitting back, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Grinning like a Cheshire cat, loving the fact that people were coming and viewing. And yes, I'm guilty. I was one of the people who was watching it. But at the end of the day, is this what the Sanctuary of Geeks is? Because as Jack said in the chat, there he's a bigot hiding behind a fucking geek channel to let people come on and spew out this toxic type of behavior, so that people will come in, watch it, and he gets the clicks of it. He does not care about the repercussions at all. All he cares about is the bloody views.
Yeah, I agree. And some would argue that if you watch that stream, there would be grounds to actually, inform YouTube.
Well, that's it.
But you see, that's the thing. I'm not going to tell anybody to do that. Or what I would say is, if you can stomach it. I really hate saying this because I don't want to give him the view either. But the only way you could judge is if you watched the stream yourselves and make up your own minds. But I think Daniel was in there as well. There was me, Daniel, Marty. There's a couple of other old faces. And also, actually, then when I actually did, I actually left a couple of comments in the chat, because I wasn't gonna come on, but I was gonna have me say in the chat, and even people that have actually targeted me were apologizing to me and stuff, and saying that this is absolutely disgusting. I said it is. It's disgusting. And I made the point last night in a tweet. People need to understand the shit that's being said about me is not true. You need to fucking get yourself. It's ridiculous. I mean, I
it's the fact that
I just can't get my head around it. But what I did say was it was about time that the fandom actually called out genuine homophobia and not label someone homophobia because you don't like an opinion that other person has. This wasn't an opinion. This wasn't freedom of speech.
No.
This was pure hatred from a 20-odd-year-old or wherever how old he is, right? And remember, these are the type of people that are going to be looking after us in our old age. We are fucking screwed.
The thing is, right? The thing is that the fact that, I'm just thinking back to the part when Mayberry was on. This is actually, I've never got this worked up before, and I'm actually really fucking pissed. But the fact that Mayberry came on, and basically the first thing he said when he came on, he called him out and said, "You're a homophobe." And what happened? Paul cut him off and said, "Oh, I thought this was going to be a civil discussion here. You can't be saying things like that. Can't be saying things like that." He told Mayberry to watch his language as well. Why Nuance spew on. And the fact of the matter is, I'll quote RTD here, like, words can kill. Suicides are through the fucking roof.
Yeah.
People are afraid to come out of the closet because they're gay. And people like Lance be given these platforms to come out and say whatever the hell they want to say. It's not helping. It's just it's amplifying that behavior. And Paul allowing that to go on, that kind of stuff. What Paul should have done when he started that behavior, lads, Paul should have cut him off. As I wrote in the comments, Paul says to Thares, I think it was, or was it to, no, maybe, watch your language. And I says, watch your language, says the man that's given a platform to homophobe.
Yeah.
No excuse. No fucking excuse.
No. There is none. There is none. You cannot justify this in any other way. And yeah, the thinking has made a point there. But here's the thing, right? Self-confessed wind-up merchant. But he doesn't realise, or maybe he does, but the damage that he's done. Words are very powerful, and he is right. And Marty is right. We know that throughout history, words are very powerful. Words can be hurtful. Words can inspire. Words can, make someone happy, but words can also have a very negative effect. And if any person that was considering coming out and watch that stream wouldn't, they would keep it hidden. They would keep it to themselves because they'd be afraid of what reaction they would get in the real world. And they'd be absolutely terrified. And nobody in this day and age should feel like that. That stream, I'm sorry, but I'm glad I didn't go on because I would have. Firstly, I would have went in on Paul for the fact that he was treating his guests like pieces of shit, but giving Lance a free rein. And then I would have gone on to Lance and actually destroyed his whole religious argument hiding behind his Bible. I would have shoved the Bible down his bloody throat.
No, there's no justification. It's people like him. Like I went and done my research. I went and looked at Lance's Instagram. I went and looked at his Twitter, and I've seen stuff that people have been saying. I've seen comments that people have been making, and I actually seen a photo. There's a photo with some guy. I think it was on his Twitter page. But the guy is a well-known, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get bothered for saying this, but this guy that he was photoed with was a well-known fascist or well-known racist in America that he was photographed with. This is the kind of people that this man's hanging around with. Now, he didn't say any racist remarks on that stream that I can remember, but he certainly was coming out with homophobic remarks, and that's it's not all.
Well, he did come out with the whole that he did believe in closed borders. And stuff like that. He did bring that up. Now, obviously, you can interpret that whatever which way you want to. But again, it's that kind of rhetoric, isn't it? Close our borders. We hate. It's a sin to be this, and you're a disgrace to God, and all of this other bleeding rubbish. We
know the kind of person Lance is, and I think the more I think about it, Paul claims to be the host. I think I lay a lot of the issues I have here with Paul, Because the fact is, if you're a host, it's about like you bring on me, you bring on Lee or Charlotte or Daniel. You can moderate it well. You know who speaks and who doesn't speak, and what way to do it, and you know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Paul went on, brought Lance on, let him spew out whatever he wanted to say, and then when another person tried to bring Lance down a peg, he either shut them off or just stop them straight away. There's so much for a moderate, what's the word here? Non-biased host. You can clearly tell it says a lot about Paul and the kind of person he is when he brings on someone like that. Doesn't even challenge them what they're saying, but challenges the person who actually is, going against the homophobia.
Yeah.
Says a lot about him as a character. And to tell you the truth, nobody should be getting near that channel again. Nobody should not be getting near that channel. I, for one, will not be getting near that channel again. Not a chance.
Listen, I unsubbed him when he decided that he was going to bring people on that were openly attacking me and my wife, and he thought it was that it was their right to come on and give their side of the story. That's when I saw him for what he is. And for me, a person like that is the worst kind of person, because you're only bringing people on because it's going to be controversial, and he's made no bounds about it. And that's the one thing I will actually give him credit for. It's at least he doesn't hide behind that and say that, make up excuses. He actually openly says that he does this for the clicks and the views.
He calls himself Sanctuary Geeks. He is nothing but a bigot hiding behind a geeks channel. He's a disgrace to the fellow geeks that are out there. He's a disgrace to the Doctor Who community. And you know what? Since he's a big fucking turtle collector, he's a disgrace to the fucking fandom of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't disagree with that whatsoever. He's not. Look, I don't know, man. The people, I just don't know how people can think like that, or people can bring people on like that. And people will say that I've brought on some controversial guests, but I can tell you one thing: they never came out with that shit or spewed that shit, because that would have been shut down straight away. And I can guarantee you that this was absolutely on a level that I have never seen.
Do you know what? Bring Lee on, because Lee is more experienced in these matters than us. So the fandom were shouting for him. Bring the man on.
Yeah, but I'm at the asking him, right? I'm at the asking you in the chat. Did you watch that other stream? Not my stream, the other stream, because I just want to bring on people that actually watch the stream and know what we're actually talking about.
I don't know. I think he did. I could be wrong. I think he did watch it. But no, I just really, I've never got this worked up and angry before. It's just, I have cousins I have a cousin the same age as me who came out, he came out about, well, I think it was a year ago now, but like he openly struggled. Like he thought about suicide. Like he was not afraid to come out. And just to think that it makes me think of that. The fact that, people like him could have led my cousin to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it boils my blood. It really, really gets me riled up. And it's not often I do get riled up. I do try and keep a calm head, no matter whether I've been on here or whether I'm doing my own stuff. But that there is just completely out of order. I was going to go on last night, but I thought I didn't even have the energy. And do something. I didn't even think he was worth it. And
that's why I didn't go on, because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, I'd love to see the TARDIS on in there," and I was just like, "You're wasting your time." I even said it to Mr. Tartar, because I could tell straight away he was wasting his time. But he went on and he gave it a good go, and to be quite honest with you, it was quite an eye opener. They all
fair play to
credit.
Fair play to Thoris, fair play to Mr. TARDIS, fair play to anybody who went on that channel that night. Memory, fair play to everyone that went on that channel that night and stood up for the right thing and called the bastard out for what he said and what he done. Because they were absolutely right. And it's a great example of how the Doctor Who community can unite against the bigot. And I wish we had more of it.
Yeah, I agree. And this is what pisses me off. You know, I get accused of some of this stuff in the fandom because people didn't like my opinions. When you hear stuff like that coming out of someone's mouth, it does, like, boils me blood. There's no place for it in today's society, but there's a
I know
lot.
there was a lot of people who came out and were very critical of RTD, of what he said at the time. And of course, when you don't know the context, you think, yeah, that's a wee bit dodgy. He shouldn't have said that. But after that stream, I don't think there's any other way you could think but to side with RTD.
Right, let's bring him on. Hello.
There he is.
Hello.
So you've watched, I just want to make this clear. So you've watched that stream that we're talking about?
I've been listening to some highlights, I'll put it that way. I mean, I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I've listened to the most salient points. I've listened to the initial response from Lance. I've been listening to Tharis, Memory, who appeared with his pipe.
Yeah, which was fucking funny though, I have to say. I mean, that was one of the funniest fucking. But he was dead serious. You could tell how annoyed Memory actually was.
You actually text me after I sent the video. You were like, "What the fuck? That's Memory."
Yeah, what the fuck? I mean, I thought I was bad with me beard and me long fucking hair. And by the way, Memory, we fucking have the same fucking beard and fucking hair, mate. I just don't have the fucking pipe. But no, listen, again, I'm going to say what Marty has said, and it has to be said. As you know, I have had problems with the three lads in this community over the last 5 years. But what they did on that stream, right, whether you agree with some of the points that were made or not, the fact that they went on there and they stood up against this fucking idiot was bravo as far as I'm concerned. Now, to me, I think they were wasting their time because you could clearly see that they were trying to take the piss out of them or were cutting across them every time, especially Mr. Tar. When he tried to get his early points across, Lance would hop in within 3 or 4 words before Mr. TARDIS could answer the question.
Well, bigots don't want to listen. You know, that's the thing. They've got their mindset and they that they're entrenched.
Right, but hold on. You've watched the video, so you've watched this. So give us your point of view, because obviously,
sure,
well,
first of all, I think the geeks, what's the Sanctuary of Geeks? I have a slightly different opinion on this. I think people would be interested to know what happened from someone else's perspective. I don't have a problem with that. What he did was he brought the guy on and he let him run loose. And I believe more conversation is better than no conversation. And he let him speak. But what he also did was he brought people on to argue with him. And I think that was fair. It's unfortunate that this young chap had these particular views, but they are his views, however bigoted that they are, and he espoused them, in his framework of his own religious and political beliefs. And unfortunately, you can't just criticize him for that and not criticize all other religions that also believe in this sort of thing. Reducing the argument down to left and right paradigms, which is what Mr. TARDIS brought in later on with his treatise for Marxism. Yeah, you can't accuse someone of bigotry and hatred and lies and all the rest of it when you're supporting a system which is based on anti-Semitism, which is what socialism is. So I think it's kind of ironic that people are not really aware of the history of their beliefs. They just assume an identity based on something handed to them through either their parents or their education systems, without really understanding what it means or where it comes from or the history of it. But I do commend, firstly, me, Marie. I do commend Tharies, and I do commend, even though it sticks in my craw, Mr. TARDIS for speaking up and tackling this, and that token lesbian at the end as well. I had to give her a mention. And it's right, you know, but I think this is a much better way of actually dealing with this. And by, even though you might not really land a direct hit, you might not change someone's mind. I think actually what happened here was an important discussion, and to show the world how we view the world in our own little bubbles and how we tackle each other. And I think it's much more important to actually have these kinds of discussions, even if it is with an entrenched, crazy bigot. I think more conversation is better than no conversation, or deplatforming or cancelling. I think that is anti-intellectual. I think it doesn't actually help anything. If anything, it proves how these kind of conversations can show the world or the people watching how we debate things, how we can show the strength of ideas compared to those of bigoted views. And I think it helps, actually. I think it makes a bigger difference. I think it's a better way of dealing with it. Now, having said all of this, I do respect people's religions to a point. Obviously, when it comes to Muslims throwing gays off buildings, which Lance did bring up, he's right. But we can't also forget what Christians have done to homosexuals in the past, and, you know, maybe lesser newsworthy today. We know it still happens. We know a lot of very Christian right-wing parents with effeminate boy children tend to whisk them off to gender reassignment rather than accept that they're gay. We know that happens. That's been in a I can't remember the name of the documentary, but it has been shown. And it said at least he wasn't a gay child, you know. At least he wasn't a gay boy. So we know that this does happen. Are they willing to have that kind of conversation? And there's an awful lot of grey area in this, but I am pleased that people did step up to tackle and challenge this notion that, I mean, I found what Lance said about the AIDS epidemic, that, you know, it's our fault, or gay people's fault for having sex. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's outrageous. And yes, Mr. TARDIS was correct in how the Conservatives, especially under Thatcher, dealt with the epidemic and turned a blind eye to the number of deaths and the outrageous treatment of AIDS victims at the time. And it boils my piss. It really boils my piss how this very evidential system of disgusting bigotry and oppression happened in the 80s. And I understand why RTD is angered by this very, very much, because he would have known people who died of AIDS. I knew people who died of AIDS, and this was in mid-90s. So, I mean, it was even far more frightening back in the 80s. And RTD's got a number of years on me. What I still take exception to is this still revolves around the political debate, that this is now still being used as a divisive wedge within not only the world, but within this fandom particularly. I think that everyone gets tarred with one brush. You know, I will tar, you know, Mr. TARDIS and so on and so forth as rabid Marxists, you know, and they would tar everyone else as rabid Republicans or conservatives, and each word is a byword for evil, you know. And I don't think these people are evil, but they seem to think that everyone else is evil. It's just kind of a religious, bigoted view as well. Don't forget, you're judging people purely on your own personal beliefs and your own bigotry. And I don't believe that every Christian is homophobic. I don't believe that every Republican or conservative is homophobic at all. I think Lance is a very entrenched young man. I think he's caught by his parents' own bigotry. I think at his age, it's inevitable that children or young men, young women are exposed to those ideas from a young age, and it's sort of beaten into them. And it's something you don't really get out of until you learn life lessons as you get older. And I think that he might not always be that way. But what I'm worried about is if we don't have these kinds of conversations, if we don't at least try, we're never going to change anything. And I think what this does is at least set an example of how to have those kind of conversations, whether you want to or not, whether you think you should be platformed or not. I believe you should platform these ideas because I believe it's absolutely important that they are challenged on these ideas. And I was heartened by the fact that Tharies and Mr. TARDIS and Memory and that lesbian lady at the end did challenge him. And don't they feel better for it? Rather than just cancelling people, I think this is a much better way of dealing with it. More conversation is better than no conversations. How can you change anything by just simply cancelling people? You're brushing the issue under the carpet. And I think rather than doing that, having a conversation. Listen, I had a very long conversation with quite a fundamentalist Christian once for hours, actually, around around a fire. And I didn't let on that I was a gay man until hours into the conversation. And by this, we talked about everything under the sun other than, you know, his religious beliefs or anything. Oh, he did mention Jesus a number of times, but it wasn't all hellfire and brimstone. It was someone's true beliefs, you know, and it was quite a loving belief. It was a universal sort of thing. And when I mentioned my sexuality, he was like shocked, you know, completely blown away. But by then we'd formed a conversation around something that was, you know, not linked to any of that or politics or anything like that. It was all talking about science. And we'd found a commonality. And that is the key, finding commonality with people we do not agree with. And it can change people's perception of you instantly, because he then saw me in a different way than if he'd just known, yes, Queen, he's a gay, I'm a gay, you know, and me sort of, you know, going, right, by the way, I'm gay, my pronouns, that doesn't help anybody. But what it showed me was that there is a way of communicating with people that we disagree with. And I think it's much more effective in changing the perception around ourselves and around each other by having these kind of conversations unrelated to the topics that we feel very strongly about, and talking about things that we find common ground on. And I think that was more important. So I still think that RTD is absolutely wrong in using a very based response by referring to this character as a Republican, see you next Tuesday. I don't think that's a very mature response. I can understand it, but I don't agree with it. And I think that you're still tarring a whole bunch of people with the same brush. And I don't believe Lance here is an exemplary model of every single Republican in America. I think that sort of is upheld as a sort of very Marxist socialist model where everyone must think the same way, so therefore everyone is bad. No. A lot of Republicans that I've spoken to might have certain religious or belief systems that exclude same-sex attraction in some form or another, but aren't opposed to it to the point where they believe it's down to the individual to decide and they don't care. That seems to be the more majority view. I can't prove that, but that's how I feel. And I respect that. I respect at least their honesty on these things.
I just think that
whether you like it or not. Go on, sorry.
No, you're all right. I interrupted you, but I I just think that, you know, I completely get what you're saying. I get it. But it's just that, you know, as you say, not everybody, as you say, it's like tarring everybody with one brush. Not everybody in the Republican Party is homophobic. Not everybody. But the thing is...
Well, not every
Hold on
Marxist
for a
is
minute. Hold on.
anti-Semite.
John. What the fuck are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? What's the point you're trying to make here? What? You have a problem with me doing this stream, yeah? I gave me an opinion. It's my opinion. You don't agree with it, that's fine. But what's all this shit? Right? No, seriously. What is all of that? Right? Because, like, I have my opinion. Obviously, you have a different one. Lee has a different one to me. I don't agree with Lee, by the way. Just want to make that clear. I don't agree. Don't think these idiots should be given a platform. Because, you know, the more
But if you give them a platform, you give them the ability to show themselves what they truly are. But
yeah,
then
but we can already see what these
discussion.
people already are. We don't need to give them an extra platform. You get rid of these.
Well, if you don't give them a platform, they're going to create their own platform, and that's where problems really begin.
You have to, as someone said there, you know, it's a bit like my main issue with what happened last night was the fact that lads came on, spewed out, and the fact that people who were coming in to give a different narrative and a different perspective were cut off, and it felt as if Paul was just taking lads aside. That's the way it felt. You know, if you're going to be a host, you have to be balanced.
Absolutely.
You have to give people time to speak. But when Maybury went to speak, I don't know if Tharius is cut off, but when Maybury went to speak,
he was cut off.
He was cut off within 10 seconds.
Yeah, that I think should have been handled a lot better. But obviously, Sanctuary of Geek is not professional. But he at least, I think, attempted to try and have some semblance of a discussion. How he went about it could have been better, absolutely. But I think
but hold on, Lee. He didn't have the discussion. He didn't do this stream to have a discussion, though. That's the point I think everybody's missing here, right? It's not that he brought Lance on to give him, you know, he brought him on just for the fact that he knew he was going to be controversial. And that's wrong. I'm sorry, but that's wrong, right? It's wrong.
I'm not going to sit here and determine someone's intent.
And fucking seriously fucking upsetting people with the shit that's coming out of their mouth. Right? I don't want to hear about laws.
It's also very emotive.
That John's talking about in the chat. Don't want to hear it. These people should be given a fucking platform. End of. That's my position on it. Right? End of story.
But I'm talking to someone who would be at the receiving end of a situation further down the line.
I know, but Lee, in fairness, not everybody would agree with you either, though.
I know that, and I don't care about whether or not people agree with me or not. I'm having my opinion, the same as anyone else. Why should I be deplatformed? Because most people wouldn't agree.
I'm not saying you should be deplatformed. Right. All I'm just saying is this guy, if this was a legit conversation to be had, right, and he brought him on to show everybody his bigotry and to question him and to challenge him as the host, I would say, right, fair enough. He did none of that. Absolutely none of that. He just brought him on to run his fucking mouth. And he let him run loose. As soon as someone did, as Marty said, tried to challenge him, he was cutting those people off, right?
No,
so as the host,
totally
he laid his flag, planted his flag in the fucking ground, and he made his position clear to his fucking audience which side of this argument he was actually on. And as a host, as you know yourself, should, to a certain extent, and listen, it's been very hard for me to do it over the past 5 years. I haven't always been biased, I can say that, but in this fucking situation, you must fucking be. You must be fucking neutral, but at the same time, if you think he's saying you as the host, you should fucking challenge that. You should fucking challenge it. You should question that person, but he didn't do any of that.
The host should be impartial, right? That the host should be what's called indifferent, or you know, I think the word is really indifferent. So you have to be in somewhere in the. But he did bring on 3 separate people to come and speak. Now, Mr. Titus did seem to get more of an opportunity to speak. But yes, I don't think he should be interfere. I think he should be there try and balance out the discussion and to put his foot down when someone's trying to cut over one another and say, no, let so-and-so speak because they need to finish their point. That, I think, is a very important thing. I'm not saying that what his intentions were or were not, but I think he could have done a lot better. But at least he did bring on opposing voices, which is important. And I do respect that Darius and Mr. TARDIS. I do respect what they did, and even Memory there.
Yeah,
and rightly
I can't
so.
actually believe.
still think
I can't actually believe I'm
descended.
praising Memory myself, but fucking he did hit the nail on the head, and he was the only, like the other two. Obviously, they tried to change the subject then when Memory actually nailed it on the head, right? But he did. He nailed it on the head, and he deserves fucking credit for it. And he called it out for what it fucking was. And I'm sorry, but I don't mean to disagree with you, Lee. And I know,
No, I'm
obviously,
happy for
you
you
know
to
better,
disagree.
but I am just fucking so angry here, mate.
Of course you are.
I don't believe as a society we should be still fucking here, mate. We shouldn't be still fucking here. We should be.
But by brushing it all under the carpet has not worked. It has never worked. All you do is create networks amongst people underground. You just drive it underground. It's never, ever, ever worked. I still believe the best solution to fighting actual bigotry is by allowing them to speak and exposing their terrible arguments and then beating them with better arguments. That is the only way to get swathes of people to understand the actual issues.
The thing is, when you have a host who has clearly made it clear what side of the fence they're on,
that's
then
true.
You think that everything's completely against you. So,
I think, as I said, I mean, I will confess, I've gone through this, in dribs and drabs to get to the salient points. But I will agree. I think that it may not have been handled very well, as we've seen before with his channel. But I believe it is a template of how to perhaps do things in the future if we take those ideas on board, as you've said, Noel and Marty, that if you had a host who was more impartial or more in control and indifferent, to be able to have these kind of difficult conversations with difficult people. But I still believe the best model is to actually have these kind of conversations, whether it's comfortable or not. I think, people on the far left talk about people being too comfortable and it shouldn't be allowed. Well, the reverse is the same, is it not? That they shouldn't feel too comfortable either. So I think it's important to have difficult conversations. How it's done, obviously, is merely about tweaking and making improvements to the process. But I still believe it's better than radicalizing people by pushing them underground and deplatforming them. I think you should expose their stupidity. I think you should expose their bigotry, and I think you should allow them to talk, because it only emboldens people to come and speak against them and to present better arguments.
I get what you're saying. I don't agree with you, but I get what you're saying. The fact that yes, these people should be allowed to say what they have to say, and then people should be able to shut them down. Like what happened last night, with Lance coming out. But as I say again, I keep coming back to them a bit like a broken record. The fact that when people actually tried to call out the bigotry and the homophobia, that Paul just shut them off.
But I still believe, from what I listened to, that they did do that, and I do believe that they did do that successfully. I do think that. I think what Barry's and Mr. TARDIS and even Memory was saying, whether or not they were cut off in certain points, which I totally believe that's true, absolutely. But I do believe that they did get their points across very succinctly. Do I agree entirely with their representation of right, left? I think it's very divisive. I still believe that it's not indicative of where we are now. I don't believe the Conservative Party are the same Conservative Party 40 years ago, the same as the Labour Party isn't the same party 40 years ago. Yeah. But I still think that yes, this could have been handled a lot better. Absolutely. Do I think Sanctuary of Geeks is the right platform to do? probably not. However, it was done. I think it's an interesting experiment. Yes, I do think perhaps it was done in order for clicks. I have no doubts about that. But I still think it's an interesting opportunity that shouldn't be thrown away with the bathwater. I think this is an interesting concept. It should be thought about. Do I think it should be a regular occurrence? Perhaps not, but I think it should dispel, maybe someone less divisive. I think it's important that we do get voices from across the spectrum to be able to talk to each other, perhaps in a more civil way. And I think, we can learn to understand each other as well as, call out bigotry when we see it and to absolutely expose that bigotry. But I don't think you can expose a bigotry if people don't see it for themselves. And I think this is a good example of seeing it and actually going, fuck me, that guy's stupid.
Can I just say, off topic, you can go back to what you're saying a secondly. John, you're digging yourself a hole. You're digging a hole.
John, just get out, will you, man? I don't want to hear you, man. I don't want to hear you, right? You don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. Don't be coming in here dictating or trying to lecture me on stuff. Get the fuck out. Seriously, I'm serious. Just get out. Right? Not going to take this bullshit anymore. Get out. Remove him. Get him out of here. I don't want him in here anymore. He's only in here to store it. Right? He doesn't have to agree with me, but he doesn't have to go on the way he's going on in the fucking chat. Get him out. Right? He's been using bad language anyway. And I told everybody, don't be using bad language in the chat. Right? Done playing. Right? Fuck off.
It's just, it's at the end of the day, like, as I say, I've sort of said what I wanted to say anyway, but it's just that it's just I think that was my biggest problem with the whole thing, was the fact that the entire, as you say, the entire stream was just coming across as one-sided. And a fair play to the lads that get on and got to say their points before they were fucking cut off. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't even just the homophobia. It was the comments about you trying to go into people's own personal health issues, and even Lance turning around. I don't think this has even been mentioned, but Lance turning around and saying a woman's place is in the kitchen. That was another thing he said, and that's a whole different discussion. Like, but even still, like, it's not on.
Yeah, I saw the discussion about women, and it was almost cardboard cutout, wasn't it? It was almost like, God, could this guy be any more of an archetype? But again, do the other side not feel better for pulling this information out of him and showing the world what he is? And I think that must be a good feeling, surely. I mean, that must be really.
It was the flower that grew from the shit. That's what came out of that stream. It was the flower that grew out of the shit.
That's actually a nice analogy there. Yeah, I'd agree with that. The fact
they were able to show what kind of a bigot he is, and as much as you mightn't agree with the way RTD put it, you can understand the
anger,
frustration, the way why. I know you've issues with the words he used, but you can understand the frustration behind the reasons why he made that comment. And as I say, the fact that we were able to expose this arse for what he is a bigot that was platformed, and the fact that the community came together last night from all sides and roasted his ass on a fucking log fire was just brilliant. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Yep.
And I just wish we had more of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But the only way you can have that is by having these kinds of conversations. And I'm sure we could have similar conversations in terms of other issues, which the other side and one side or the other can prove their argument or fall foul of their beliefs. And it works both ways, don't forget. But I think it was important discussion. I think it was a great opportunity for people to vent and to expose bad arguments and good arguments. And I think we should have more of that, perhaps not on his channel, but I think that is a good template. And to be, I would prefer to see it obviously more respectfully done. As it
Well,
used
definitely
to be.
he's not the
You used
platform.
to have these kind of discussions on late night television, you know.
Yeah,
on
this is not the platform. He's definitely, that channel is definitely not the platform to have these conversations. I will agree with you on one aspect. There's a show over here called The Late Late Show. And as you know, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we're a very religious country. So he tackled topics like homosexuality and all of that back in the 80s when it wasn't, you know, when it was a real taboo topic. He actually had people on from the Catholic Church, nuns and priests, like literally telling everybody that this was a mortal sin and all of this other rubbish. But they had those debates, and you are right, it does open up then the possibility of people coming to fucking some consensus or whatever. But his channel is definitely not the one for it. I'm sorry. He's just doing it. He's not doing it for the right reasons. He's doing it for the one reason and one reason only. And by the way, just to let you know, you might be bragging about the views that you got for your stream, but I got more for this one, so fuck you. Right,
but
so what? So there you go. But the point is, that's all he's doing it for, and it's absolutely disgraceful.
I just want to address, and I you know, and I don't.
I'm just going to the toilet anyway. You go ahead.
Sure. You know, I don't want to rile people up or anything, but I do want to address some of the more salient points that John White was saying. You know, John has his own particular idiom and way of speaking, but I do think he does raise a point that yes, we had a supreme example, the archetype radicalized religious right, which is antithetical to the individual and freedom and things like that, which he you know, shows an affinity for. How can you have freedom for everybody and individualism for everybody when you espouse that gay people shouldn't have sex and that, you know, women should be in the kitchen? That's not freedom. That's not individualism. That's antithetical to the right wing, and that is hypocrisy, frankly. And you will find, surprise, surprise, that hypocrisy exists on both sides of the political aisle. So I just wanted to raise that point, and to address his other point, that by simply swiftly, you know, in a catch-all wave of the hand, dismiss an entire group of people from the fandom as being CUNTs. You know, I don't think that's how. I think outliers like this Lance character should not be representative of everybody, you know. And I think
what did I miss? What you doing? Trying to defend him or tell us that he has different opinions? What you saying?
What
about John? John, you were talking about
no,
John
I was just raising his point. It's not him personally, but just the point on the, you know, the branding everyone as one thing, you know, like Republicans see you next Tuesdays. I still don't think that was an adult response.
The normal stuff.
No, I mean, do you want anything to say pizza?
Butter sausage.
Pizza discussion, yeah. Much more important.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, I still think, you know, two things can be wrong at the same time.
Right.
And I think this has all been extremely sad to witness. I can understand RTD's absolute loathing for this particular individual. Absolutely can get that. I just don't think the response, I think the targeted response to him particularly could have been justified, but to simply as a catch-all to say that all people are the same as this guy is reductive.
No, I have said that as well. I have said that he shouldn't have used RTD, shouldn't have used Republican.
It's an abuse of power as well. You know.
Okay, yeah. I'm in agreement, and I'm in agreement with John when he said that. Right? Absolutely. I'm sorry, just
I
you
can
don't agree
understand his
with me, like.
frustrations too, but I also don't think that discussing it in a sort of heightened emotional state is also going to help. I think.
But it
I
is
think
an
people
emotional topic, though, man. I mean,
Yeah, of course it is.
you're watching that live,
I'm
live,
impacted.
mate, watching that live. Seriously, man. I've
Yeah.
never look. You know yourself. John did make the point. I've been accused of similar stuff, right? And but to see it firsthand,
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm one of those people that believe that society is not as bad as people are making out to be. Now I'm kind of like thinking, are fucking people right? Is it this fucking bad? And it does fucking make you question those things. But that I swear to God, man, I've never been so angry in all my life watching that. I just so I'm lucky I didn't go on. I'm just lucky because I know I would have made a show.
Well, I
myself.
will say that the LGBTQ plus, as it now labeled, doesn't help itself either, because it has become incredibly politically motivated and radicalized to the point that it is putting our own lives at risk by being extremely combative and pushing certain dogmas which are antithetical to reason, antithetical to science, antithetical to a lot of things, and is often done in order to be as facetious as possible to the people that they despise. And some justification there, and some certainly not. This is a much more nuanced discussion, but I don't believe that we are helping ourselves. I think we're putting ourselves at risk by pursuing certain things which I think are dangerous. And I have to say that. I have to speak honestly about how I feel about how my sexuality is being used as a political tool, and how I can see that working against my better interests. You have to look at how I was removed from Twitter for simply saying that homosexual men do not have sex with vaginas. And you have to consider that it can't be ignored. And that's happened to a bunch of people. I've actually spoken to a few gay men who this has happened to as well. And unless they're willing to speak out about that bigotry, then the discussion is moot.
I agree.
You can't just accuse one side of being the worst people ever and then not acknowledge when it happens on your own side.
You have been balanced. I will give you that. I mean, you have called out both sides in this whole.
And I will always
topic.
do that. I will always challenge oppression. I will always challenge bigotry when I see it. I will always uphold certain beliefs and the freedom of speech in order for people to at least be honest. I would much prefer people be honest than hiding their, like if I went to a cake shop and I bought a cake of someone and I said I wanted a cake with a big giant cock on it, saying, in your ass, and they made it with a smile on their face, but secretly they hated me for it. I would much rather know that I was buying a cake from people who were like totally okay with it, and people who would or go somewhere else if they didn't like me and not give them my money, rather than give them money because they felt that they had no choice. You know what I mean? I don't want to live in a world where people are controlled or their true thoughts are buried to the point that they then form links underground and then form certain movements or parties with tiki torches and whatnot. That's not helpful to anybody. And you don't combat fire with fire. And this is where we're at, and I think if you're going to espouse ridiculous views like this Lance person, I still don't believe. I think that's indicative of a lot of Americans, not going to lie. And not just Americans. I mean, look at Iran. If you're same-sex attracted in Iran, they force you to transition into the opposite gender by pain of death if you don't. You have to call out all monotheistic religions on that basis. But Christians are low-hanging fruit, really. And I don't believe that all Christians are like Lance either. You know, some people take the Bible extremely literally, which...
Yeah, just like other religions do as well. And I made that point at the start of the stream. I wasn't just saying, Christians. I did actually say that there is extreme elements to every religion, and they're the ones that hide behind certain book that they read or whatever to disguise their bigotry and all of this. You know, I made that point at the start of the stream, like, so I just wanted to remind people, just in case people forgot. I actually said that at the very start of the stream. So go ahead, Lee, anyway.
No, I was just going to say, you know, people will use all manner of, you know, beliefs as a way of excusing terrible actions. You know, there's a saying about atrocity. I can't remember what it was. Maybe someone in the chat could pull it up. But yeah, I think it's very easy for people to use their beliefs as a smokescreen for their bigotry, because it sits well with them to be able to have power on their side in order to use it and wield it as a form of oppression. I understand that, but I don't believe fighting oppressive regimes with another oppressive regime is the way to go. So, you know, Marxism, socialism is just another branch of theology, effectively, that has an oppressive history to it, and that worries me. You know, people may argue socialism is purely on the rights of man and fair play for all this kind of stuff, and that sounds great in practice, in theory rather, but in practice it very rarely ever turns out that way, because people are people, and unfortunately subjected to hierarchies and certain dogmas and nature. Effectively, that's how we've evolved. So, you know, highfalutin ideas, great in theory, but very rarely turn out well in practice. And I think you're just replacing one form of oppressive religion with another. And I think that isn't really where we need to move forwards as a species. I think we need to start thinking about terms of politics and beliefs in a much more rounded way, in a much more spherical way. We live in a three-dimensional reality, and I think our politics should reflect that. And I think that this whole left-right paradigm is extraordinarily divisive. I think it's done deliberately to keep people stupefied. I believe it's there to keep people divided between left and right, blue and red. It's so basic, and I can't understand why people can't see how incredibly destructive that is, and how incredibly manipulative that is, how we're all being manipulated by elite powers who want to keep people divided into left and right. And I don't think that's helpful for progressing our society forwards. I think you have to think in much more nuanced terms. We live in a three-dimensional globe. We live in a huge and vastness of space, and we're insignificant or highly significant one way or the other. But we are on this ball of rock and water, and we are all fighting each other over, you know, A is better, B is better, A is better, B sucks, B is great, A is evil. You know, it's insane. And I think there are so many people, I think the vast majority of people, at least in the Western world, which is a minority, believe in the grey, right? They believe in all the spectrum in between, and sitting in the middle of all this going, this is insane, you know. And quite often, more often than not, it's the smaller voices on the fringes of these left-right paradigms who are dictating what everyone else in the middle does, or should think, believe. And that's a real, you know, tussle, a real pulling game between those two things. And I think that ultimately it can only tear itself apart, and everyone else in the middle is just going to be subjected to what happens after that. I just don't see that as a way forward. I think we need to start having more nuanced conversations, find our common ground, find a commonality, and then perhaps only then, when we've actually reached a bridge and agree on at least something, and then work from that, and then through working together, only then can we actually find more commonality, and that the things that we thought were the biggest dividers between us, we can actually talk about those and try and understand each other and to understand why we think the way we think.
I just think that last night was a really great example of how, obviously, like with Doctor Who, we know how divided this fandom can be, and we know what shit's been said back and forth.
It's a
But
shame.
last night was a really, really great example of how, people can put whatever differences they have to one side and just come in and say it how it is and how it should be. And as I say, if we could get more of that going, if we could get more of that, I reckon our fandom would be what's the word?
More united. I believe that. I believe that this should be an opportunity to not just revert back to the old gripes and this continuation of this, dog eat dog kind of mentality. I think really, what was done yesterday was commendable. And I have no problem saying that, because I'll always speak up when I believe something was done right. But I do think that I worry that we're just going to resort back to what happened before, and I don't think that I think that's a wasted opportunity. And I think, whilst we have our differences, we really should be talking about what our commonality is, and only then can we relax with each other to be able to have these more in-depth conversations about what we disagree on and why we disagree on, and that we don't have to hate each other simply for disagreeing, that we can actually understand each other and maybe agree to disagree on certain things, but it's not done in a basis of hatred, right? We're not hateful people. It's just that we are misunderstood, and people who feel misunderstood feel angry. And if you can diffuse that anger by actually having better conversations rather than no conversations, and people being brushed to the fringes, I think this would be a much better way going forward. And I hope this is not a wasted opportunity. And I don't think you necessarily have to love one another, but at least try to understand each other and respect that there is a difference there. But we can overcome that by having a certain commonality. Our commonality is Doctor Who. That isn't something that we should just brush aside. And I think if we had these more of these kind of conversations, not necessarily from one extreme to the other, like with Lance and on the far religious right or whatever, and TARDIS on the far socialist left. Obviously welcome to have conversations. I would love to sit down and actually have a conversation with Mr. TARDIS or Tharis and stuff. I'd love to talk about these things. But in a respectful way, without sort of name calling and all the other things that we've all been guilty of. But I think it's an important opportunity, and I just worry and fear that if this happened, and it seems to have happened, and for whatever reason, I think it will be a shame to lose that opportunity. And I think it will just go back to, oh, they're evil, they're good, they're evil, we're good. And I don't think that that's going to move anything forward, And I think that it would be a much better situation if we could just talk. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yep.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to finish up, lads, because as you've probably heard, the wife has gone to get us
pizza
and a battered sausage.
Pineapple and ham. Yes.
I'm getting a meat pizza. Fuck the vegetables. She'll come back with goat's cheese and spinach or something, or some weird concoction like that. She loves our weird pizzas. So yeah, that's what we're having. Definitely no pineapple on my fucking pizza anyway. But that's an argument for another day.
Bigot.
I wish life was so simple that we could just argue over pineapple on a pizza and other shit like this.
Yeah,
but that would be the thing that starts off World War III.
Well, look, anyway,
more than any issue.
we've all had our opinions on this stream, and that's what it's all about. And you know, as I said, valid points made on each side. But you know, this incident, Lee is right about one thing. I mean, this incident has opened up a debate. Whether I
I'm
agree
just
with
simply,
it.
I just
Well,
say
yeah,
that.
I know where you're coming
I
from,
know. I
but
just
I
want to
just
say
find
that,
it
you know,
hard to
not
stomach.
all
You
people
know,
on the right are evil. Not all people on the left are evil.
I
There are
agree,
people looking
100%.
at this going, "This is fucking weird or
I
bad or
agree.
whatever." And
I
I
agree.
just think it's important that people do remember that. And people like Lance are an outlier. You know, there might be a lot of them, but there are more right-thinking people in terms of people who are more tolerant and able to have a more nuanced conversation than someone who is that entrenched. And I think
One day
by
I'll
using
get
one
in train.
entrenched belief to fight another entrenched belief, you're not going to proceed. So you just all need to come together and actually have a proper conversation and look at what brings us together rather than what divides us.
Yeah.
You know, it's so
Well,
simple.
anyway, it's a stream for you
Sure.
guys anyway, and the stream for everybody to debate about. But it doesn't matter what side of the argument you fall on. At the end of the day, you know, it has highlighted an issue in society, and that happens in fandom quite a lot. So yeah. Interesting times ahead. I will say this, and I have said this from actually day one. This is why I got a little bit annoyed with John. You know, in no way am I defending RTD for calling Lance a Republican CUNT, right? He was right to call him a CUNT, but not a Republican, because it does, and I do agree, it can set a dangerous precedent.
But even then, I still think
that's why I
better
gave out to you,
response.
because like as if you just popped in midstream, didn't hear what I actually was saying, and then you start blabbering on the stuff that you're blabbering on. I suggest that if anybody does come in midstream from now on, you know, to go back, it doesn't matter if you're not watching live, you know, watch the stream from the beginning so you don't take things out of context or don't know what you're talking about, because I've already said stuff already. He shouldn't have called him a Republican. Right? He should have left that part out. But he was right to call him a CUNT. Absolutely spot on.
I still don't think.
I know
person
you
with
don't
his
think.
position should use that kind of language. I believe he could have made an example out of his bigotry for sure. But to use that label and that word, that puts a stamp on that entire thing, and it just emboldens people on the far left to go, "Ha ha, it's ours now. You're not welcome." And that a lot of Republicans out there who would absolutely disagree with Lance 100%, but they've all been tarred with the same brush now. Yeah. I still think that was the wrong decision. I still think he was right to be angry. I still think he was right to be able to say something as a reason, but I just think it could have been done a little better, a bit more class.
Again, another thing, as I said, you mentioned about the side on the left attacking people that are apparently I know and stuff like that. It happens on both sides, though. I mean,
of course.
Let's be honest about this. I mean, some of you deliberately go out there and tweet things in a certain way because you just want to get reaction, just like the left do. And this is, I think, what Lee is talking about. That nonsense from both sides needs to fucking stop, because it's affecting the people that, you know, in the middle, as you say, or centre, or whatever. You know, they just want to get on with their lives. Lee is right about that. You know what I mean? But it's both sides, right? Yeah. Let's not just say it's a leftish. It's not. Both
We've
sides.
all been guilty of it too, you know, to varying degree.
Well, I've openly admitted I've made mistakes the last 5 years. I've said it. I've come out and said it, right? And I'll say it again. Yes, should I handle situations differently? Absolutely. Are there times that I put tweets out there to get a reaction? Absolutely, I did. Right? We've all done it, right? But I've grown up. I've learned from that now. That's not the way to go. It's not gonna help resolve any fucking issues. You know, it took me a long time to learn, but I got there eventually. You know, a bit fucking
more
slow,
conversation, not less, and more respect between people having conversation, and to agree to disagree on certain things, but certainly try to understand each other better. I don't see why that shouldn't be a model going forward, and I just hope, really, against hope, that we can have these difficult conversations, but do it in a respectful way, and you know, not everyone is a bigot. Not everyone is a loon. Not
Or
everyone is
racist.
a radical or racist or sexist or Marxist
Yeah,
or
exactly.
a fascist or let's put all that aside and just talk.
Well, if we were, we would be living in a totally different world as the one that we're living in right now. Like, while I do say we still have a ways to go, society has actually, we have actually made great strides there, but there are still a lot of things that need to be done. And no doubt we all know that. It's just how people are going about it on the left and how people are going about it on the right. And the people in the middle are rightly getting pissed off. And this is what's going to fucking happen. So, as I said, we all have different opinions on this particular topic. You guys in the chat will also probably have different views, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this stream. Lee is right, though. It is important to have debates. I don't think, quite frankly, that a channel like the channel that I don't even want to mention the channel's
Either we
name.
hang together or we hang separate, and I think ultimately we need to have these kind of conversations.
YouTube channels like his are not the platform to be having these conversations, right? As Lee has right, and the point that I wanted to make about the Late Late Show, as I said, that show tackled taboo subjects in Ireland at the time and got both sides talking, and it did get very angry at times.
I think that the Late Late Show, because I still watch it now, it's not as good now as what it used to be.
No,
but I think it helped Ireland move forward as a country.
Yeah,
and sort of wake up and smell the coffee. And
when
you say Gay Byrne didn't hold back, he said it as it was, and fair play to him, God rest him. But he pulled his punches. He basically challenged people on both sides of the argument, and
he did. He'd have questions for both sides, and he didn't give his personal position. It was like, right, so this is their position. What do you guys think? This is their position. What do you guys think? And then come to some sort of common ground. But that's the way it should be in settings and environments like that. On a YouTube channel like the one that only does it for clicks and views, that's the wrong place to be doing it on. But again, then it's going to be a huge challenge for that YouTuber who decides to bring guests on like that, because there's going to be there would be a lot of anger out there. So again,
yeah, but listen. Let's look at this historically. Regardless of what your thoughts are on Tony Blair, and his illegal wars, etc. He did bring two sides of Northern and Southern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland together to talk. I mean, it took Boris to fuck it up, but it did mean that. I mean, if you think about how extreme that situation was, yet those two sides were brought together and sat around the table and talked, and it resolved to a point. It may not be a full peace, but an easy peace, but it's still a peace nonetheless. If we can't look at that as a model for this fandom, as a way to try and make things better, because no one really can surely be happy in a situation where this divisiveness and divided fandom is healthy for anyone's mental health, for anyone's benefit. It's not. And
you're right in what you say there, because at the time, not to go completely political, but
sure,
had that not happened, had there been no such thing as a Good Friday Agreement, I don't know what it's like to be moved away with a bomb scare. I don't know what it's like to have people I know shot. But my mom and dad could tell you stories about all that years ago. I haven't a clue. That's like a completely different world, and that's two sides coming together, talking it out.
And if they can do it, we can do it. It just takes a bit of maturity and a bit of desire to put aside our own personal prejudices, our own personal beliefs, our own personal gripes and ideas, and just go, okay, I'm open to discussing it, talking about it. It's not difficult, and I think once you sort of put people in a certain category, you stop seeing them as human beings. And I think that's a huge loss there. And I think once we start dehumanizing the other side and not seeing the human behind it, then we're really not doing ourselves any good. We're not helping ourselves let alone the other side. And
Yeah.
And I think really we need to bring humanity back into these discussions and not just fight each other on causes and political parties and beliefs.
Here's me pizza.
Reductionism. You know, we need to see each other as human beings first, and everything else and identity and political things as something completely removed and separate from us. We are not a political party. We are not an identity. We're human beings, and we need to talk as human beings.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You'll be day
right.
Pizza now.
Yeah, I've got. She's just at the coming in the door there. So if you want to do use our channel shout outs, lads, and we'll leave it there because the pizza is here.
Marty, you go first.
Oh, no bother. Well, MCTV. You will find me over on channel yonder. I think PD put in the link. Come over there, check me out. We're doing the Zero Room podcast at the minute. We're got episode 3 coming out on Friday with The Wolf and the Storm. So looking forward to that. And I've done 2 podcasts already. I've done one with Vote Saxon 07, which blew up. It's got like 400 views, which is nothing, but it means the world to me. And then we've got Tharis, who was on last week. So yeah, there's a couple of surprise guests coming up over the next 3 or 4 weeks, so I hope you can all come over and enjoy it. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Lee?
Yeah, I can find me on Instagram, Ordered Audio Visual, same as my YouTube channel.
Fantastic. And I'll be back here later on for our watch along stream. So I've already put the link in the chat. So get your asses over there and have a chat with each other until we get ready. I'm off now to have some pizza. As I said, we will have we'll do those member streams. We'll get them done. But I just want to, as I said, do the Peter Capaldi one tonight. So join us 6:30. Yeah, I'm just gonna have me pizza now, which looks absolutely fucking huge. I think she got me a large one. What the fuck, man? I'm not even gonna be able to eat a large pizza, but there you go.
Well,
anyway,
you've got some for tomorrow. Nothing
yeah,
like
no. You're the
oh, come on. Day after pizza is better than fresh pizza every time.
That's like always doing.
Whack it in the oven for 8 minutes.
You all leave me alone. My pizza will be cold and I won't be able to eat it.
When I go out and when I get drunk, I order a massive pizza.
I always get more pizza than I need. Than I've got for the next day.
See, when I go out on a night out, I get absolutely pissed drunk. I order the biggest pizza you can get. I eat some of it when I go home drunk. I wake up the next morning, put on Netflix, and I eat the cold pizza. It's brilliant.
Nah, you're so disgusting.
It's brilliant.
Tight.
Right, I'm gonna go because she wants to talk to me as well. Like so, I will see you all later on. Hopefully, she didn't get me a bad pizza because I was so busy. I was just like get Artin on it. So, oh Jesus!
As long as it's got no hairy fish on it.
Oh man, no, she knows not to put any fucking anchovies and shit on it. Anyway, we'll talk to you in a while, right? So I'm going to have me pizza. You just go on into the chat there and chat to each other, and me and the panel will be back later on, which will feature Charlotte, obviously Lee. Real Super Doctor, and I think PD Rich is also joining us for Listen, Peter Capaldi's Listen. So yeah, come and join us for that. Right, folks, see you later. Have a good one. As I said, leave a comment, give us your opinion. As I said, all it is I just wanted to highlight this because it was something that I think was important to talk about.
I'm glad it happened. I am glad it happened because I think it was important to happen.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. We'll leave it there before Lee goes off on another tangent, and then my pizza is 150 years old by the time he's finished. So good night, folks. We'll talk to you very soon.
Bye.
Oh my God. You pineapple phobe. Oh no, pineapple.